give a go.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, please, feel free to interrupt anytime. So, first, thanks for coming. That's been a long time since we should have done the alumni event for France, because I'm the president for the alumni in France, and I've not been very active. Sorry for that in the last months, years. But basically, yeah, we ought to change that. And I can see here we've got Professor Nakata from NLA as well, who's joining us, and he's the expert on AI. So if you've got difficult questions, that's for him. If you've got easy questions, that's for me. So thank you for joining and welcome. And basically, yeah, we're going to go through the presentation now. Normally, you should be able to see my screen. And I hope I've not made any mistakes. I just wanted to put that first because, nostalgia. I just love this building and the place around it. So for those who have been studying hard here or are still doing it, then just a small reminder. So 4 points basically tonight. A brief summary about what is artificial intelligence, and because you hear a lot of things around, and no, it's not a human, and no, it's not a new colleague. It's just a machine, basically, with a bunch of algorithm in it. That's the easy definition. I've put also paragraph about how we use it internally. We are an intranet, software provider based in Paris. I'm the general manager for the DACH region. That means the German-speaking region. And basically, we use AI in our tool, and I'm going to show you rapidly how we do that, what it brings, so what's possible today. Then we're going to go about some thinking about consequences, what brings AI, what do we have to be careful about, the questions that some of them not yet answered. And also in my organization or in my personal life, who's using it, how can it be used, what are the costs, what is Europe doing about it? I mean, you'll probably heard a lot about sovereignty questions. It was 3-4 weeks ago, I was in Berlin for a sovereignty meetings, German-French sovereignty meetings, and they talked about SAP and Mistral AI getting together in a partnership to create a European champion. So that's some things we can discuss. So basically, artificial intelligence, if you look at Investopedia or Wikipedia or wherever, simulation of human intelligence by software-coded heuristics. So it's basically a simulation. It's not a real thing. It's still a machine. It's not. I mean, when I was a student in computer science, like years ago, I had a colleague of mine who was doing some research on neural networks. Well, that's basically AI. And so it's been existing since years. That's nothing new there. What is new is that we now have the computing capability and computing power of making it fast instead of and having a huge network of computers working together. So that's a big difference compared to what we had even 50 years ago. Well, 40 maybe, not 50. So it existed in the 50s, nothing new about artificial intelligence. It relies on training data sets. So you have a neuron, so to say, that you put together, so spots of computers that you put together, and you have to train them to recognize patterns, basically, and correlations in order to make predictions. A friend of mine the other day said, if you want to explain it to somebody who's not in computer science, you basically say, we know that 5 plus 7 equals 12, and an artificial intelligence thinks that 5 plus 7 probably equals 12. So it's a probability game, basically. It's about recognition of patterns and correlations in order to be able to make predictions. So it simulates human intelligence quite impressively, obviously. I mean, if you've used the most famous ChatGPT recently, you can see that it's getting better and better. But it's all only a simulation. It uses a large amount of data, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because garbage in, garbage out. If the data you're providing are wrong, then the answer is going to be wrong. Back at the time, there was this story about the military using artificial intelligence to train. They trained basically a system to recognize tanks, and so they gave photos and tons of photos, thousands of photos about tanks. And then when the training was over, they asked the computer they put a picture and said, okay, do you see a tank in the picture? Which can be quite useful, obviously, to see if your enemies have a tank or not. And the computer said, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, but the answer were sometimes very wrong. And actually what they found out is that the computer was had been trained to find out if there was a forest or not on the picture, because every time that it put a tank, there was a forest, and every time there wasn't a tank, there wasn't a forest. So actually the computer had been trained to discover something else. So you have to know what you train it for, and you have to train it rightly, and you have to have enough data and enough data to be able to train it correctly. So that's important. There are 3 types of AI: artificial, narrow, general, and super AI. And basically the one we know mostly, i.e. generative AI, for doing translation, playing chess, or recognizing images like I just illustrated, or Alexa, Siri, this kind of stuff. It's still weak AI, so it's the very beginning. It can do some specific tasks quite well, but it's the beginning. The next step is general AI, called strong AI. It's quote to quote similar to a human being, and there's an ability to learn, apply intelligence to a wide range of problems, but it's still a theoretical concept at this stage. And then there's a super AI, which is artificial superintelligence, which is completely independent thinking, learning, and decision-making and judgment. There have been some talks about it recently, because some experts working in AI have said, well, it's going to come in 10 to 20 years. It's still science fiction for the moment, but it will come. And they have said, well, we have to now think about what we want this super AI to be able to do or not, because it could take over a lot of decisions. Do we want that or not? It's always the question about controlling this kind of activity. Well, all these science fiction films that have been, Terminator and all this stuff. So it's a big question, and we need basically to act now and think about it now, to put a framework in place so that it can be controllable, basically. Because even today, if you look at the several engines that are provided, how are they trained? Who's providing the data? What kind of algorithm do we have underneath, and so on and so forth? Well, you need to know that if you are using one AI, basically, because depending on how it's been trained, you might not get the answer you've been waiting for.
Apologies, Owen. I'm just going to pop you on mute there, Paula. There we go.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, there are 4 functional categories, 2 of which are usable: reactive AI and limited memory AI. I suppose I haven't asked or I haven't said, Ryan, but I suppose the slides will be given anyway to the participants afterwards. I mean, I've got no problem with that at all.
Yes, we can share these as well as the recording. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Perfect. So I'm not going to go through all the details of all the slides, basically, because yeah, it would take us too long. But basically, yeah, just know that today we are at the very beginning of this stuff. You know, autonomous vehicles. I heard they're coming to London soon. It's been in the US, but now they're coming to London. Not yet in Paris, and Germany is anyway very cautious about these things. But we are not there in the theory of mind or conscious AI stuff. This is still science fiction for the moment. Something that's important to know, I like to remind my prospects and my customers, if you are not paying for the version of AI that you're using, you're probably the product as usual. Basically, you have agreed to give all your data and all the text and everything you're typing to the AI so the AI can be trained. Is conscious AI a potential for the future, even if it's not reality today? Yes, indeed, it is more than a potential. Some people say it will come, but the question is when. But yes, and so, as I said, we have to take the rules now and think about it now so that it's not overtaking things. Yeah, it's quite. It can be scary. It's quite mind blowing, especially if you see the use of it. I mean, I've got a. It's not a real colleague. It's somebody who's working for us. He said to me the other day, "Oh, I'm trying to make a clone of myself as an avatar in AI, so that he reminds me what I've got to do, and he pushes me and motivates me every day on my daily work, and tells me which books I've got to read and stuff like that." So wow, okay, I'm not sure I would like that personally, but okay. And we had to give you another example, we had a candidate. I was looking for a salesperson. I had a candidate. We're making 3 interviews each time, and the first interview was like, wow, the guy understood our product, mind blowing, perfect. And then we did the second interview, and he wasn't that good. And on the third interview, he basically said that on the first interview, he used AI full, 150% to answer the questions and to help him go through the interview. I said, okay, so maybe I should have recruited the AI instead of you. And finally, we didn't take him, but I was completely blinded, basically, and I was very impressed by the level of answers that he gave me on the first interview. So you have to get deeper. Private individual, if using paid AI, does the AI store use your content? Obviously, yes, it does. And it doesn't tell you sometimes, or maybe it tells you in not VAGBs, that's sorry, that's a German word, the stuff that you agree, the terms and conditions you agree for, and it's on page 395, paragraph 12, that yes, they will use audio data and more. So yes, if you don't pay, you are the product, basically. And you agree to, and you cannot do anything about it afterwards. So if you shared some private data, then they don't belong to you anymore. It's the same with these file transfer systems, which are for free, big files transfer. It's the same stuff. It then belongs to the software editor. So even if you pay, you're still the guinea pig. No, if you pay normally your data are protected. So normally they have no rights to use your data if you are paying. But what I would advise anyway is read carefully the terms and conditions before you use any of those products. Unless you don't care. I mean, I've got some colleagues saying, I don't care, I've got nothing to hide. Yes, maybe now, but maybe in 10, 15 years time, you don't want to be quoted on saying this and that and your data being used. So be careful. Yes, there are some privacy-oriented AI. That's true. And also for me, the question is also where does it come from? Who's behind it? Europe, Asia, US. That's also for me a big difference. But know that I had a conversation with a Microsoft representative 3 weeks ago on this sovereignty stuff. It was quite interesting because I said, well, because they said, yeah, but we're investing a lot of money in Europe and then tens of billions of dollars and stuff, and to build data centers for AI and everything, and we're a great company, blah blah blah. I said, yeah, fine, but when the president of the US says to Microsoft, please bring me the data, you have to. There's no, there's the Patriot Act and then the Cloud Act and everything. You have to give him the data. And she said, yeah, that's true, that's true. So I said, so you're not sovereign. So even if the servers are in Europe, you still have to transfer the data to the US. So that's it. There's no going around it. You cannot do anything. If you don't, you might be probably stopped from doing business by the US government, which obviously would be a bit difficult. So yeah, so be careful about it. Okay, I'm in the German market, so most of my figures are for Germany or for the German market. Sorry, I didn't look at European-wide or even worldwide market. But basically, you can see the trend in a few years. It's been increasing, and it is increasing. I mean, I've got a customer. We provide an AI module in our software suite, an intranet suite, and we've got customers. They are buying the module. And I said, okay, fine. So what do you want to do with the AI module? Are we going to install it and parameterize it and so on? And the answer was, well, I don't know. You tell me. I know it's music for the future. So I mean, it's like something we have to do. So you tell me how we should use it. I said, well, hang on a minute. That's your project. I'm just a software provider. I shouldn't be telling you how to use it. You should be telling me how you want to get it parameterized. I thought, wow, there's a lot of education to be made. So thank God we're not bad people, but you could misuse that. That's just mad. And we meet a lot of customers and or prospects and yeah, there's a lot. I mean, especially in the public sector, there's a lot of people not knowing what it is and how it's used and everything. So yeah. Well, thank you, Sarah. That's interesting. I hope it stays interesting. Okay, so I've put a few scenarios. I mean, we are an intranet software provider, as I've said. I've put a few scenarios on how we use it in our software. But it might be interesting for you. It's a bit of advertisement, obviously, but just to give you ideas of how it can be used as well, and how you can, yeah, what you can do with it. Funnily enough, even ourselves, we have to think about how to use AI in our professional work. I mean, I've asked my marketing colleague to do a white paper about on-premise versus cloud, because we always get the question. And I said, so can you please do it? And she took 2 to 3 days. I said, well, hang on a minute. I mean, just ask the AI stuff. It's fairly basic. So ask AI to produce you, pros and cons for each stuff, and that should be done, within 2 hours. So even us have to learn about how to use it and become more efficient, obviously with a critical eye to it. And because when we publish something, we have to be behind it. So we have to certify that what we are writing is correct as well. But for the start, if you have a blank page, then it's maybe easier sometimes to use AI to start. So that's the blank sheet syndrome. You've got to write a topic. Your manager asks you to write about this and that, and you're, in marketing, that happens a lot of time. and you have no ideas, you have no time, and so on and so forth. When you write yourself, I mean, I'm surrounded by technical people. Forget about the spell checking; it's full of mistakes. Well, if you use AI, then you don't have mistakes about of these kinds. It's most of the time it's fairly well written. You can even change the tone. You see here on the right, you can put it even in a poetic way. It's quite funny actually. Um, you can be persuasive or editorial, etc., etc. So you can change the style as well, and it can help if you have to do content in several languages as well. And it helps you to put some more content out there. The question is, where are your sources? What system you're using, and you have obviously to check what has been written to be sure that it's realistic, or it's interesting, or it's correct actually. The other thing you can do, which before AI, which we have asked knowledge managers to do, is take the text you have, take all the documentation you have, and please put some tags, please put some summary, because people don't have time to write. Please translate your content in other languages, because you have sometimes multi-language, and I mean several languages in your team if you're international. And nobody did it because it's just too much work. Now with AI, you just press a button, it gives you all the tags basically from your text. It's so easy. You just put that in as a metadata to your text, and it helps for the search later on. Same for the translation. People didn't bother translating before because, well, first maybe they couldn't. They didn't have the skills. Not everybody speaks 15 languages. Or even two. I've got some colleagues who just speak French and don't see why they should speak another language, but never mind. Quite surprising these days. Yeah, I mean, one of them is 35 years old. Anyway, but then again, that really helps. You can even generate a quiz from a content. So we've used that in our learning. We've got a learning management system as well in our internet. We've said, okay, here's the text, here's the PowerPoints. Please generate a quiz from there. I mean, if you take this PowerPoint, I could easily generate a quiz, and then have people, so you can check if people have read or understood or not. Don't worry, it's not going to come today. And yeah, it's quite useful actually for this kind of stuff. What you can do as well.
Can I jump in with a
Sure.
question? Is it possible?
Sure.
Yeah. It's one that came to me, I think, as you were speaking, and I'd be curious to hear from any of the other participants whether they've done this. But have your company built their own AI and trained it on the company data, or do you use an external AI platform and train it on the data that you already have? I'm just curious.
Second option, yeah. Because building your own AI, well, you need some. If you want to have your own AI, you can, but you need some big servers, you need some NVIDIA cards and so on. It's quite expensive. I mean, you have to, I don't know in pounds, but in euros, it's about 100K for one server with all the appropriate cards and so on. And I've got some customers doing it, especially in the public sector, because they want to be completely independent from anything outside. But we are, and I'm going to come to, there's a slide where I can show you all the connectors we have to the various AIs that exist. And some of them are, I mean, I know Albert, for example, is recommended by the French state, for example. So because it's produced in Europe, in France probably.
Yeah.
And so your data are going to stay there, not going to be. So even if because you have to send your data to AI and then it is processed and return the answer, even if it's done externally, then that they have some stricter conditions, GDPR and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which if you use OpenAI, then you're in a different world.
Entirely global, isn't it?
yeah, global and also from a legal point of view. Yeah, we use Copilot, but I hadn't clocked the company using the data for their own means. Is that a thing? I hadn't clocked the company using the data for their own
So
means.
I think the question is Copilot, is that
Yeah.
a separate company that's taking their data, um, or is it staying internal when they're using Copilot? I think is the question on that one.
Well, if it's in the cloud, it's external anyway. I think you can have an on-premise version so that it would be in your company. But then again, you would need to import it in your company and use it in your company. You have to ask your IT guys. But most of the time, it's external. So yes, you are sending your
Yeah,
data to Copilot and therefore to
yeah,
Microsoft and therefore to Donald. So that's competitive intelligence, they call it, not to
yeah,
say spying. So yeah, have to be very careful about that. But normally your IT guys should know about it. Um,
yeah,
for some stuff it doesn't really matter. You know, if I'm writing an article or blog about welcome to Ryan for his new job, da 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 da. Okay, well you send the information. Doesn't matter, not really. I mean, you know, it's not like super um, important. It's not going to change the face of years probably. But if you're working in some, you know, defense industry and stuff like that, then yes, it could be very. I mean, I've seen an article recently about people people using an app on their smartphone, kind of for training, workout, you know, like to be fit, you know, stuff like that. And they had it installed on there, and so they could. He was a bodyguard, and you could see where he was living. You could see where he was going to the Elysee Palace, you know, in where the president is. You could see where he's spending time at the doing his laundry and stuff like that. You could see basically where he was all day long. I mean, it's a bodyguard. You could, you know, kidnap him and put another one,
yeah,
and then go near to the prison. That's wow. I mean, even at the time, Angela Merkel's smartphone was hacked. So yeah, you have to be very careful. I've got some people working I know some people working in the defense industry. When they go to a meeting room, all the laptops, all the equipment is stored away, and they enter only if they have nothing, um, and they cannot use their own devices. So yeah, you have to be very careful. So Copilot is an external AI, therefore anybody with access to the internet is benefiting from anything you may input. Well, it's not that easy because, you know, Microsoft, yes. Um, I mean, if you can hack into Microsoft, yes, you could probably, but not. I mean, it's not that easy. But yeah, it depends how Copilot is implemented in the company. It's running on the company infrastructure. It's stayed in the company. Yes, correct. If configured like that by the company. If you use Office 365, it's essentially public. Yeah, yeah, that's true. So it depends how it's configured, and therefore you have to be very careful. But for small, I mean, we are dealing with small companies, and small companies don't have the IT team, you know, that knows everything. And sometimes they say, "Oh, I'll just plug it in and that's it." And well, yes, I mean, by doing that, you share it with Microsoft basically, and they use that to train
mhm,
their own systems. So my team uses Copilot Studio to get the Gen AI interaction format, the data selectively specified, and we can query and correct. It's about skimming through the content to find specific information. It's pretty holistic. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a big help, you know. I mean, when I've got somebody sends me a 253 pages document and I've got to read it for tomorrow, yeah, obviously, and either I spend the night or I use well, that's actually the next slide. I use the AI to say, okay, here's the here's the document, here's the questions I've got, and the AI then just summarize you what they found in the document. And they can even say, okay, I found it on page 36, paragraph 2, and they can show you the place where it's been found. So yeah, and it's the same for videos. I mean, I've got that problem with a lot of colleagues doing some meetings we record the meeting. We can, with an AI, you can put a subtitle to the meeting and translate the subtitle into German for my colleagues and get a summary. And so they know what the meeting was about in a summary of 15 lines instead of spending 1 hour into a language they don't understand. So yes, obviously it's a big help. And if they say, oh, that's interesting, then they can look at the subtitles and then find out who talked about what, and they can even put the video and ask AI, okay, who said this, that, and that, and who's, and then talk through the chat, through the company chat, talk to this person. So yeah, it's quite useful. I mean, I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying use it with a critical mindset, basically. HR. We've got one HR person in our company, and so if we are 110 people now. If she's got to answer every HR question, then she'd be doing that all day long. And so what we've done is a knowledge base FAQ, basically with the most important questions, and she fills in the FAQ, and people then ask Lucia, that's the name of our HR assistant, basically, which is an AI. And we ask Lucia, okay, how does it work? Here, how many hours of rest between 2 working days, blah, blah, blah. And Lucia will tell you, okay, well, that's the answer. And you can find the answer in this document. I mean, I've invented it's written there. So, and the good thing here is that you can, if you see on the picture, you see chat and information. Under information tab here, you've got basically the list of all the documents that have been used. So Lucia will be restricted to those documents and nothing else. And if she doesn't know, then she says, I don't know. It's actually, I don't know why, but we always put a female name for the HR assistant. It's very sexist, actually. But well, there's some things that are,
It's
marketing and HR.
interesting when it's interesting. It's probably just a tidbit, but it's interesting that using an AI to respond to human resources queries then puts into question the human words in human resources.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
Yeah. Well, there's still a human that writes on the FAQ stuff, that feeds basically the AI. But it's true that it's very often, if we've got newcomers coming, there's a bit of turnaround, and we've got newcomers, and they always have the same questions. So what's the added value of having a human answering these basic questions?
No, I agree with it. It's just a noted.
As the AI, obviously, our HR person is still available. If it's not that she doesn't hide again, behind a wall, but for simple questions, you don't want to disturb her as well. So yeah. So yeah, it's being more effective and finding the information rapidly. Funny thing is also as well is some people feel more comfortable asking an AI than asking a human person, even though she's supposed to be, there's a confidentiality issue. She can't, talk to anybody about a conversation, obviously. But still, yeah, some people are more comfortable asking an AI, which is interesting, not to say weird. You should be continuing the stereotyping of HR as being a female. Yeah, definitely, I agree. I mean, we should mix. Yeah, very sexist. Yeah, instead of dress. I don't know. It's just marketing. I mean, I'm working a lot with internal communication people. 80% are female. Okay, I don't know why. It's just I wish it was more mixed, but that's the way it is. What's wrong with putting a picture of a robot more truthful? Yeah, I mean, actually here, Lucia, it's a picture. Actually, it's not the person here. That's just for the illustration, but it's just a picture that we've got. It's not actually a real picture. So we know we are talking to a robot and not to a real person. But there are some things like that needs to be thought about. That's what I'm saying is that basically puts question that we haven't thought about before, and we have to advise customers on this type of stuff. To perform tasks as well. Yeah, to write me a LinkedIn post about this and that, and email it to so and so and so. It's feasible. It's much easier. It's much faster, much more efficient. We're going to come at some point in LinkedIn where we have AI talking to AI, basically at some point, and generating the post automatically. So yeah. Well, that's also a stuff that is a bit of a problem, I think. Using if you get tons of CVs for a given position, extracting information with AI, analyzing, querying the CV, and so on and so forth. We don't go as far as having the AI selecting from 150 CVs, selecting the 10 that the person should be looking at. We don't do that. And we don't also go to the point where the AI is selecting the right candidate for the position. I've heard some companies do that. I don't think it's a good thing. But yeah, but I've got we tried that with a friend of mine. He applied for a job, didn't get an answer. I mean, he applied on the Friday, got an answer on the Sunday, which you could question, saying, sorry, you haven't been selected, da 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 da, and it was pure AI. There was no human intervention whatsoever. Based on a CV, I mean, I used to recruit when I was in the UK. I recruited a guy. He had a music background and study, and he was one of the best IT people I ever recruited because he was doing that on the side as a passion. So he wouldn't have been selected by the AI basically. So you have to be careful about that. So you have to be careful about is the information provided by the assistant correct? Is the answer reliable? Are the sources relevant or not? There's a lot of parameters to consider. And models of the AI engines that you're using are updated regularly, and it can affect the performance of the assistant, obviously. So pinch of salt when you're using this kind of stuff. It can be useful, but I mean, in my opinion, you still need to have a person behind it. To explain as well the way it works, basically, and I'm going to be very high level because I'm not a technical person anymore. But basically, the way it works is that you've got sources of information, what we labeled here content. It's getting analyzed by an embedding model and vectorized basically, and then comes then to a vector database. So everything is basically puts in several chunks and several vectors, and then so that's the first part of the use case, and then you've got somebody asking a question. So the question is being rephrased. That's a 2.1 here. It goes through the embedding model as well. It produces the vector, and then you compare the two, and through a query engine, and then you try to identify similar chunks. You filter those chunks, 2.5, 2.6, you re-rank them, and then you basically answer the questions using only the selected chunks to construct the answer. And when your answer is constructed, you send it back to the person, to the real person that has asked a question. So as you can see, it's probability start slash computing things. So there's nothing. So the question is about having the right vector database, having the right engine, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of parameters in all these things that you have to be aware of and careful about. And we help customers do that. We do it on purposes, obviously. But yeah. So that's a lot of stuff that you have to be aware of and careful about. So if you don't know what's behind when you use an external AI, obviously you don't know what's been used. So that's why you have to be a bit careful. If you ask the same question several times, you might get different answers. If you ask another AI, you might get a different answer, depending on depending on which sources have been used, how the training has been done, and so on and so forth. In the future, well, what we think is going to come is basically I'm going to use my smartphone as an assistant and say, okay, I've got a meeting tomorrow with this customer. Can you please look at our database and see what are the support tickets? What have we sold recently? Is he happy about what we have provided? What has been the last contact? How is the mood? Stuff like that. And please produce me a synthesis of all that for tomorrow, and maybe start preparing an offer about this, and that. All that with voice recognition through your smartphone. So what's left to us, basically, to the machine could do most of the work that we do today and book a meeting and send a mail and stuff like that if you let it. So what's left for humans? Well, basically imagination and checking that what the machine produce is correct. Yeah, because you still need to have people checking. Which poses a question. I've talked to a friend of mine is a lawyer in a small company, and she said, "Well, I need to answer customers. I've got an AI. I've got a trainee. Okay, the trainee is going to become a lawyer at some point. So if I ask the AI, it's going to take 2 hours. If I ask the trainee, it's going to take 2 days. But when I'm not there anymore, who's going to be the expert checking what the AI is saying? So the trainee needs to go through the training and needs to learn and so on, so that later on he can check what the AI is producing and is correct or not, because you still have to put your responsibility as a lawyer. So she said, so sometimes you want to be fast, so you ask the AI, but actually maybe you should ask the trainee to use the AI and stuff like that. So yeah. Is AI in recruitment a race to the bottom? Yeah. Well, I've read, and there's thanks for sharing the article from the BBC. There was also a good video the other day I saw about where it could lead to. So yeah. Can you give an overview of what agentic AI is, please? There is a term that is being heralded as a savior operation in Maroc, but I'm not sure what it means or what can I expect? Well, basically, agentic AI is having agents running, so a bit like assistants that have, where is it? A bit like Lucia here, which is an assistant, but is basically in your IT system. So it's an agent running in the background and doing tasks automatically, which you might see or might not see, talking to other agents who are doing other tasks. And so basically doing things in the background, preparing stuff for you so that you can use it later on. So yes, it will be, it should be the future, so that there are some tasks that are automated, because we are all spending time with no added value task where I've got to put a meeting, I've got to put the right people in a meeting. I've got to, if you can say VI, well, take the last meeting that I had with customer and the same people and put that for tomorrow, 3:00, and the agent does all that for you, then you're obviously much more efficient than if you have to do it yourself manually. Now, you have to have all that stored somewhere, all this information stored somewhere, accessible through an agent, through an AI. And the question is, do you want to leave AI access all your data? Yeah, depends. So yeah, for us, the intranet or the digital workplace is where we store all our information. I mean, we've got 20 years of question and answers, ideas, and everything, documents, everything we do, we produce is stored in our intranet. So it's like a huge, knowledge base basically. And even ourselves, we have trouble finding the right information at some point, and what is obsolete, what is not obsolete. Yeah, and if we have AIs working, I mean agents working in the background, even saying, okay, this content is obsolete because of this, and that. Do you want to keep it or not? Do you want to remove it? This kind of stuff would be useful because you keep only the useful information, and so you don't explode your storage as well, which costs less. Cost is going to cost less too. So a few consequences and reflections about AI, which I mean, personally, I think are mind blowing. Even though I'm in, I'm an IT, I'm a computer science guy at the beginning, but still amazing. So we're just gonna go through it. It's just food for thought, basically. I don't have all the answers, obviously, but yeah, so that people are aware about some stuff. Hallucinations, yes, UI is total BS sometimes. Yeah, it just says some stuff. I mean, I've asked them about our company, and they said we were in this town and we were 10 times more people than we are. I said that, so I wrote to the CEO and I said, "Oh, you should have informed me." He said, "Yeah, it's just AI bullshit, basically." But I think so there are some hallucinations, less and less, because there are some progress and it's getting better and better. So basically, if you ask to generate, because now you can generate videos or images with AI, obviously. What has been generated 2 years ago, the Pope, this famous stuff, you can see, well, first of all, it's probably unrealistic that he would be wearing something like that. I mean, but he would have been because it's not anymore. And you could see on their hands wasn't not so well formed and stuff like that. So you could see some stuff, right? But today, meet Tilly Norwood, the next Hollywood actress. She doesn't exist. It's all fictitious. This person does not exist. It's all all bits and bytes basically. But she still can act in some films. She doesn't go on strike. She's available 24 hours on 24. She does what you tell her to do, and so on and so forth. Do we want that? We talked about that with Ryan just beforehand. 1/3 of all Spotify music is AI generated. Wow. Do we want that? I mean, personally, my kids say I always listen to the same stuff anyway, but all stuff from the 80s and before. But there again, I mean, music full AI generated, and it's got some success. So people like it. So it's like Netflix. Netflix is basically looking when you start, when you stop, what you're using, what you're looking at, and defines your profile and puts you the content that he wants you. I mean, TikTok does the same. Yeah, with actors or actresses that look like this or look like that, or not quite sure it's a good thing. So yes, we need reading the chat. Yes, we need to educate people about the environmental impacts of AI. I'm coming to it as well. Yes, it does exactly. It does cost 10 times more to do a search through Copilot than it does through Google, and people don't know it. So do you need to use AI? But do you have a choice? I mean, if you go to Google these days and you type something, the first thing you get is an AI answer anyway. You don't, I mean, there's probably a way to disable it somewhere, but I haven't done it. And recently in LinkedIn, if you go to LinkedIn to your profile, there's a small button that Microsoft has been talking about like 2-3 months ago, but just rapidly talked about it and then not anymore. if you don't disable this option, you give the right now by default to Microsoft to use all your LinkedIn profile and content. So I personally disable that stuff because I don't see why I should give them anything for free. But yeah, you might not be aware, so just be aware that. So yeah, Hollywood is also being impacted by it. Responsibility. Self-driving cars, we mentioned that, coming to taxis coming to London soon. Yes, but when there's an accident, who's responsible? Is that the software provider? Is that the guy who trained the AI? Is that the car maker? Yeah, if the situation in clear the you heard about this famous paradox. Either you're gonna run over the old lady, or you're gonna run over the 10 kids that are in school. Which one do you choose, and so on and so on. And so if we leave this kind of situation to AI and kind of decisions to AI, then yeah, who's programmed the algorithm? But yeah, to add in an example, yeah, before the meeting, yeah, Kane Walker, Spotify. So here, financial advice, legal advice. Yes, you can ask an AI, obviously, right? And yes, you get some advice, but is the advice correct at all? Maybe you want to check with a real lawyer or with a real banker before you do anything. Having said that, I had a problem on the motorway the other day, and I called my insurance 10 o'clock in the evening, and she said, "Oh, the best thing you have to do is basically rent a car and go back home because that's paid. I wish you a happy evening." I said, "Yeah, right. Thank you very much. 10 o'clock in the evening, there's no possibility to rent a car anyway." Um, there, obviously, I would have preferred to talk to an AI because it would have been probably much more useful than this person who's a real person. So anyway, yeah. While you must not disable the option, you can disable the option in LinkedIn. Yeah, there's no privacy by design. Obviously, they want your information. So copyright, that's the other question. The left picture has been generated by an AI. The right picture is a drawing from Picasso. Okay. Now, fair enough. You can. I mean, there has been a problem if there are some restriction if you take an AI and say, produce me a painting which is a la Picasso, which looks like Picasso. Okay, fine. Now, let's say you've produced an image. Okay, you sell it for 10,000 quid, right? Okay, and you've done it with a la or even an AI song, right? I mean, a la Beatles or a la Mozart or whatever. Okay, who owns the copyright on this thing that you have produced? Is that the artist? Is that the programmer? Is that the creator? And the artist family, if the artist is dead, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I don't have the answers. I mean, I haven't had time to look at it, but I know that's a problem, and I know that there has been some restrictions on producing content from AI. And you cannot say a la Picasso, for example. You cannot do that. That's forbidden now with the tools that are on the market. But still, again, who does it belong to? This one is also a bit scary. I don't know if you heard about deadbots. Well, basically, you take all the information about your parents or your grandparents, everything they produced in their life, videos, text, speeches, everything, right? You put that in an AI, you train it, and so on and so forth. And then when your grandfather, for example, dies, then you can still speak with the AI, and you get answers, like as if it was your grandfather. And then again, question of intellectual property, can you use some of these sensors or not? And there's also a lot of other questions like, philosophical. Okay, it might help some people to mourn, so maybe it's a good thing. But how long should it be? Should the AI tool be available for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? Is there a market? Yes, there is a market. Some tools like that are available in the US or in China at the moment. So there is a market for things like this. Is that ethically good or not? Depending which culture you come from. Legally, there are some issues because all our laws apply to the living people and not to the dead people. There's no laws for the dead people except for succession, but succession is also a living for the living people, except for intellectual properties and royalties and stuff like that. But that's for the living. So the dead people have no rights, so to say. And also isolation. I mean, we've seen this phenomenon of people talking, having psychological problem. I mean, the young people having psychological problem and trying to solve them through an AI, yeah, there's exactly in Black Mirror. There's a good episode on that. But it's now reality. I mean, and on Black Mirror, it's an Android thing as well. I mean, it's a human form robot as well. So they push it a bit further. But then robot things do exist these days. They're not, you still can see, but take it, forward and 10 years, 20 years. Will you be able to tell the difference? Not quite sure. And there's also some religious questions. Eternal life. I want to stay eternal. I want to be listened to in 200 years. So I make an AI of myself. And so I of course, I put away the bad sides of my personality, obviously, and I always, put myself. I mean, that's what people have been doing when they write their memories. They always put the nice stuff about themselves. Yeah. So yeah, it is a bit scary. If you want to know more about that, my son is a law student and is doing his thesis about that. So just give it 2 to 3 years and then you can read his thesis. But it says sometimes it's like it's a hard topic, but there's a market for it, and there's some companies selling this software. So we have to think about it. And yes, we are coming to the ecological thing. And yes, a ChatGPT query consumes 10 times more electricity than a Google search. So think before you do it. I mean, especially to produce, silly, stupid images or videos and stuff like that. Do you really need to do it? Because there's electricity being used, there's water being used, and so on and so forth. So I've put here the most important, stuff, and you can see that image generation, and there's no video generation, but it's probably explodes the whole scale. So what it brings is, I know somebody working for Siemens, and it says, well, data center are booming because we need to have AI using data centers, so we need more electricity, so we need more nuclear plants or more oil. Therefore, we have Trump, going to Alaska and whatever to get more oil. The famous drill, baby, drill. Yeah. DeepSeek as well. We don't know how it's produced, or maybe using other AI and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't have to use it, don't. There are still how do you say, Wörterbuch, it's in German, the dictionaries. Dictionaries are still around. I mean, opening one is not that difficult, but I know it's easy to get the smartphone and do it. So yeah, ecology is something important. Something that we hear a lot about these days is, oh, my job is at risk. So in 10 years time, I don't have a job anymore. Yes and no. So here you've got a scale about, what's a bit more what can be substituted and what cannot be, and what is complementary or not. Having said that, yes, I heard in the UK they have a problem. Young programmers have a problem now being recruited. There are 50% less young programmers being recruited in the last 4 years because companies are using AI instead of junior programmers. Okay, how are you going to get senior programmers at some point? I mean, I went through the junior programming stuff and made some mistakes. So yes, I mean, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we need to think about how it's going to affect our job, obviously, and how you know. I don't think there's it's for me. It's going to be a mix of things. It's going to be complementary. There are some tasks that you are going to be able to do more rapidly, and so you can concentrate on other tasks. I mean, our programmers, as a software provider, some of them don't use it, some of them use it a lot, and some of them use it half of it and correct what the AI has been producing. But obviously, we have some guidelines internally to say, okay, wow, hang on a minute. If you produce your code through AI, then you need to do some checks, and we have obviously some Q&A stuff and testing and everything. But yeah, I mean, for translation, I mean, we used a translation company 10 years ago. Now we're using DeepL and asking the native language speakers to verify rapidly if it's correct. And I'm using DeepL a lot of time, and I still go through my colleagues in Germany because they say, yes, we understand what you say, but a German-speaking person wouldn't put it like that. So we're not there yet, but the difference between today and 3 years ago, just amazing. I mean, it's wow. The quality has really improved. So yeah, and AI is not infallible, definitely. So you have to be very careful in reusing the code. And is there a specific regulatory body? Yes, there is. I'm coming to it. The first thing is the European Commission has issued a AI Act, and there are some rules being put together. So my thing here is be careful of who's using AI. You can also as well, restrict it in your company and say, okay, only this category of people or this group of people can be using it, others not, because they don't really need it. You should have an architecture that allows you to choose your AI provider instead of depending on one, and may be able to change it if you want to. And obviously, we are a European company. We push for European providers instead of over Asia or US providers. That's what we are able to connect to at the moment as a software company, and you can see what you can use some AI for. So if you want to use videos, for example, Gladia is still the best one, and does things that others can do. Albert has been, how do you say, recommended by the French state, the French government. Mistral AI had just done a partnership with SAP, so they're probably good. On the German market, there was one, but I don't hear about them anymore. So I think they have some financial problems. And obviously you've got the OpenAI and Gemini and so on. I've heard recently that there was some trend in the last weeks that Gemini and the last version is much better than the OpenAI stuff. Yeah. So try for yourself. Yeah, be critical, basically. Yeah, you're bleeding. Yeah, that's in AI regulation. Yes, in AI itself. The problem is that AI requires a lot of financial. I mean, a lot of money to train it. It costs a lot of money. So, and because we have 27 countries, it's not always easy. But we're getting there. I mean, hopefully, we have to anyway. Otherwise, we're completely dependent. The cost, these are absolutely not up to date. As you can see, it's March this year. I need to put that up to date, but it's just to give you an idea about how much it costs. And as any with any new technology, it's going to be cheaper and cheaper and cheaper the more people are using it. So basically, you need to buy some tokens, and 1,000 tokens give you approximately the computing powers for 750 words, and so on and so on. So with 1 million tokens, you can basically deal with 75 documents, and yeah, and so it's not that expensive really, and it's getting cheaper. So yeah, so that's just again compare now. Obviously, DeepSeek is cheap, but do you want your data going there? Maybe not. And here is the regulatory approach. So it's a risk-based approach, basically. Effective this coming year, that's the level we are going to be on, and the government in France and Germany are pushing for this high risk level to be pushed, I think, 8 months forward, because they said that a lot of companies are not yet ready to ensure this framework, because here you've got the timeline. So some of it is already in place. Some of it is coming this year. I mean next year in August. And so here you've got in the source you've got the legal document. If you have problems sleeping, it's a very good document. It helps. It's huge, but then again, that's how it's going to be regulated. So it's a good thing because obviously in some areas where like medical device, toys, vehicles, education, training, employment, and stuff like that, migration and stuff, you don't want a jungle, so you want to have some framework regulating all that. And the EU is working on it, and is going to impose this regulation to the AI provider, which is a good thing. It takes some time, obviously, because it's not an easy topic. But then again, yes, I don't have Cloud by Anthropic because I'm not sure we have it as that's the list of providers we can do as Jalios as a software provider. So I'm not sure we have a connector. It's surprising actually, because normally we should have one. So I can ask my research and development team why they don't have a Cloud being there. It's just what we can provide as a software company. But it was more to show you the metrics and saying, some AI provider can do better things than others. So when you use our software, you use an AI, you don't really know what's behind it. So for the video stuff, we use Gladia. And for the text or the summarizing or writing assistant, we use another one. But for the end user, it's completely transparent. It's just using an AI. He doesn't really know what he's using. So that was just some information, basically. But it was a small reflection about, will AI replace search? Yes, because assistants are an alternative to search. You talk with an assistant and you ask him some questions. But no, because sometimes the results are not of good quality. And that's a problem. Several outdated documents will override the last valid document. So garbage in, garbage out as well. But if you have a lot of fake information and you have like 10,000 and you have only 500 right information, then the fake information is going to take over, basically, if you use an AI. Now, if you use a search engine, then you might be able to sift through the information and see, okay, yeah, that's just fake, but this one is correct. Yeah. So you have to be careful. So yes and no. And we are talking with search engine software providers, and yes, they do. All of them have put AI in their tools, obviously, because yeah, it's much nicer to get a well formulated answer than to get a data URL stuff, which is a bit yeah, not so nice. So for the conclusion, and yeah, sorry, I was a bit long, but for the conclusion, get ready. It's there and it's not leaving. It's more and more. I talked to my daughter and her friends, and they said, yeah, some in universities, some professors says forbidden to use it, and some professors say, well, no, we will use it and we will learn how to use it, instead of saying, I just don't want to, because it's going to be everywhere and it's going to be much easier. And also, I mean, especially in Germany, where we've got a demographic problem with less and less people, we still need some stuff to be performed, and AI is going to help, that's for sure. But please try to understand the underlying mechanism. That's just an introduction to the topic, really. I myself have to get more and deeper into how it works and understand all the intricacies. Be critical, just please take 2 steps backwards and say, okay, well, okay, is that's AI produced? If you know it's AI produced, that's also a problem. And for me, it's an evolution. It's not an evolution; it's a revolution. It's like cars, electricity, or the internet. It's really going to change a lot of things because it affects on how we think, basically, and I mean it affects the intellectual part of how we work. I mean, the internet, it was better communication and network. Electricity, it was to be faster and like cars and stuff like that. But here we are entering really a world where, I mean, I've heard people saying, when I'm old, I better have a robot taking care of me with AI than a human person. Okay. I know it's hard to find people to take care of old people, but okay. I mean, the human empathy. ... So yeah, what I'm saying is that we have to as somebody wrote before, we have to get educated and yeah. Um, as I said, it's very early days, but it's coming and it's coming fast. So yeah, you ready? Fasten your seatbelt and learn and educate yourselves, basically. Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad it was informative. Yeah, usually we do it in a, I mean, and thanks Ryan for asking a few questions too. And when we present it to people, I've got a colleague and we do that with question and answer sometimes. Yeah, yeah. Think, basically, as Aretha Franklin was saying, think. Uh, and yeah, this music is still much better than the AI produced music, in my opinion. But that's a
I'm just
long
going to jump in
discussion for
and
Christmas.
I'm just going to jump in and take this opportunity to end the recording, because I think the plan at this point is to go into Q&As and a bit of a breakout session. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining. I hope you enjoy watching this recording. I'll just stop that now. There you go. So yeah, this is